Hello everybody and thank you for clicking on this video. As I record this on the 26th of June, Sunderland have not yet announced their new sponsor for next season. Although we probably know what it is, leaked photos, etc, but at the moment it's still not been officially confirmed. So I thought it would be a good time to look back at Sunderland sponsors from the past and do a tier listing video. I've watched hundreds of these on YouTube over the years for a plethora of different subjects. I've never had a go at making one myself, so I thought let's see if it's any good. So I've done the rankings in a Football League table format, so we have automatic promotion for the best ones, playoffs for the good ones, mid-table for the forgettable ones, and then relegation for the worst. I'm only going to be including Sunderland's main front of shirt sponsors, so the little stick-on patches on the sleeves, the shorts and etc, Hayes Travel, what have you, they're not included, it's just the main ones. And the other thing I'm going to take into consideration is that there's a lot of betting companies featuring here, and betting companies are quite unpopular. It would be very easy to just put all the betting ones down the bottom. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try and judge them more on how they looked on the shirts, and then I'll also take into consideration other factors such as how long they featured, any notable moments that happened in Sunderland's history whilst wearing that sponsor, Wembley wins, trophy wins, etc. So, with that said, let's get underway. We start with Cowi's, which was the original, the first one to feature on any Sunderland kits. It was, of course, the chairman, Sir Tom Cowi's company, and it started the trend of plain black text sponsors on Sunderland's home shirts, which became the go-to. It looked good, and it wasn't too intrusive. I don't think because it's the first that automatically makes it one of the best though, so I'm going to put that one straight in the playoffs. It looked nice, but there were better ones. Speaking of which, the next up is Vaux, and of course there can be no arguments, that one is straight up into the automatic promotion. There were several different versions of Vaux, I'm just going to include them all as one entry, but there was of course Vaux Samson, there was Scorpion Lager, there was Lambton's, they were all Vaux products. It looks good on every single kit. Yeah, and it was a local firm. Next up we have Tuborg. Now Tuborg, if I am correct with my history here, Tuborg, it was still Vaux. I think Vaux had the license for Tuborgs in the UK, and they then used the shirt sponsor space to advertise it. So although it did come under the Vaux sponsorship, I've put Tuborg as a separate entry just because Tuborg is its own entity, if you like, and it still exists to this day. It looked alright. I'm going to put it in mid-table. It looks good on those yellow Nike kits. Next up, Reg Vardy, my favourite, I think. The logo looked fantastic on every shirt it featured in. It featured in Sunderland's 2 7th place Premier League finishes, and we won the championship with Reg Vardy twice. For me, automatic promotion. I personally prefer it over Vaux. Next up, Boyle Sports. Boyle Sports came in when we got promoted to the Premier League under Roy Keane. I remember we'd had Reg Vardy for about 8 years. It felt like we needed a change and we needed to get in a bigger sponsor with more money. Of course, at this point it was Niall Quinn and the Drummondville Consortium. Everyone knew we were going to get an Irish sponsor. It was very, very Irish around Sunderland at the time. I think it looked good. I think it looked quite smart on the kits actually, and it was a fun time to be a Sunderland fan. That first season in the Premier League under Roy Keane was amazing. I'm going to put it in the playoffs. I think it was good. Then we come to Tombola. I'm not sure about this one, you know. I remember there was a lot of mickey taken at the time about Sunderland being sponsored by a firm called Tombola. On the home kits it was plain black text, and it was a local firm. So by those parameters, it was a really, really good sponsor. Is it mid-table or playoffs though? I feel like I'm putting quite a lot of them up high early doors here. I think it looked good, and we had our peak of that run in the Premier League with Tombola. I'm going to put it in the playoffs. I think Tombola was alright. Invest in Africa. This was a dodgy sponsorship deal. I remember at the time, the tabloid newspapers were reporting that it was one of the biggest sponsorships in the country, saying that we were getting £20 million a season. In 2012, that was insane. I think the club actually denied that. I think it was probably more like 20 million over a 5-year period or something like that, which they didn't complete. They pulled out after 1 year. after there were all sorts of accusations that Invest in Africa were actually driving African fishermen out of business and were just corrupt. It looked awful on the home shirt. I think it looked smart on the away shirt, I must admit. I thought that away shirt with the white sponsor looked good. It looked dreadful on that home shirt. Do I put it relegation? No, I'm going to put it mid-table, I think. Next up is Bidvest, which I think was the ugliest sponsor. The font was horrible, and it was on that big white border, which actually caused discomfort. It actually caused me to bleed. Those sharp corners on that big, almost felt like card sponsor on the front, and it was an ugly sponsor. You know, the best moment for Sunderland whilst they wore Bidfest was when Jermaine Defoe scored the volley against Newcastle, and as he celebrated, his shirt actually folded so you couldn't see the sponsor, which I think about summed them up. That's relegation for me. Bidvest, terrible. And then we reached Daffet, which I'm putting them relegation as well, you know. I thought that the sponsor was ugly. That yellow looked awful. It totally ruined that white away kit with the blue sash. Why on earth they didn't change the colour of the Daffet on that to be blue to match it, I don't know. And then it featured on the Championship relegation shirts and that horrible, horrible home one. And then, I don't know if you remember, but the 20th anniversary pre-season game against Celtic was the Daffet Cup. And it was a contractual obligation. Awful, terrible, terrible sponsor. Remember, people used to call it Daft Bet. Next up is BetDAC. I thought BetDAC looked great on the home shirt. Plain black, it looked really good. That home shirt from the front was pretty much perfect. The back of it was ruined by the red. However, BetDAC also sponsored Charlton, who of course beat us in the playoff final. So that takes some points off of it, and they stitched us up by pulling out of the sponsorship early doors. So for that, there you go, mid-table. However, because they dropped out after 1 year, it created a problem for Sunderland because the home shirts had already had BetDAC printed on them. I can't remember what BetDAC's parent company was called, but they basically said they wanted to donate their sponsorship space to Children with Cancer UK. So that ended up just being stuck over the top of the BetDAC logos on the home shirt, and it was a big, ugly, red, bordered bit of paper, really, and it looked horrendous. It ruined the home shirt. It was the away shirt that baffled me. Why on earth was it not put on a blue background on that away shirt? It would have made the away shirt so much better. Well, I know why. Cost cutting. It would have been cheaper to have ordered 20,000 red sponsors than, say, 10,000 red ones than 10,000 blue ones. Stuart Donald saving every single penny he could. And it made that Children with Cancer sponsor look awful on both the kits. That was also Sunderland's worst ever season, finishing 8th in League One. It was a season that was ended with COVID. Just everything about that time was dreadful, and it's annoying because Sunderland having Children with Cancer UK as the front of shirt sponsor, that should be number one, the absolute best. But because of the way it was done and the circumstances around that time, it's mid-table. And that's a real shame. I wish that they went back and did it properly, but they never did. So Children with Cancer was really, really let down, and it's such a shame. Next up, we have Great Annual Savings. I remember when this was announced, there was some mickey taken because Stuart Donald, Great Annual Savings. I remember people saying that the logo was just Sunderland just endlessly circling in League One. It's quite funny, actually. However, we won at Wembley twice with Great Annual Savings, and we got promoted with them. Yeah, I think Great Annual Savings was decent. It's going mid-table. And finally, we have Spreadex Sports. When Spreadex was first announced, I thought, wow, that's the worst sponsor we've ever had. However, got used to it quite quickly. Plain black text, wasn't very intrusive. It was mainly plain white on the away kits, which looked quite smart. Well, Tommy Watson was wearing a shirt with Spreadex on it when he scored the winner at Wembley last month. My best ever moment as a Sunderland fan. Which is crazy to think. I've been a Sunderland fan for nearly 30 years, and my favourite ever moment was a month ago. Such a great time. I'm still on a buzz. For that alone, I'm putting Spreadex in the playoffs, which is ironic really, because we won in the playoffs with Spreadex. So there you go, that is my tier list for Sunderland's sponsors. You've got Vaux and Reg Vardy in the autos, Cowi's, Boyle Sports, Tombola and Spreadex battling in the playoffs. Bidvest and Daffet have been relegated. Do you agree with my list? I bet that there are going to be lots of people with lots of different opinions on this. I bet there'll be people who think I'm talking absolute bollocks on some of these. I'd love to hear what people think. Comment and let me know, and if you've got any ideas for any other tier listing videos that I could do, let me know, and I'll see if I can get round to them. And hopefully, in a couple of years' time, Sunderland's new sponsor can do well in one of these listings. See you later, bye.